Is it a case of politics, revenge, or athlete safety? It is May 8th, 1984, and my name is Tyler. Our top story today: Russia has announced they will be boycotting the Summer Games being held in Los Angeles, California. The Russians are citing safety and anti-Soviet hysteria in the United States as the reason for their absence. However, the mainstream media is calling it a revenge move based on the U.S. boycott of the Summer Games back in 1980. For more on the topic, here's Jessica doing an interview with Afghani Kamara, a civilian that is one of the victims of the invasion of Afghanistan that started in December 27th of 1979.
So Afghani Kamara, when the Soviet Union enacted the treaty called the Soviet-Afghan Friendship Treaty, and they sent thousands of troops into Afghanistan under the leadership of Leonid Brezhnev, what was it like having the Mujahideen invade your country?
It was horrible. They took out food and water. They would enter my house and sleep in my room. They took complete military and political control of Kabul and other large portions of the country.
What are your thoughts on why they had the invasion?
It had a lot to do with religion. The Prime Minister, Hanifa Amir, tried to sweep aside Muslim tradition within the nation, and he wanted more of a Western slant to Afghanistan. A lot of people in Afghanistan were outraged because of their strong Muslim belief, and they joined the Mujahideen as an act of rebellion.
The Soviet invasion had a devastating effect on the Afghan people. Could you tell us about the negative effect of the Soviet bombing?
The Soviet bombing destroyed entire villages, crops, and irrigation, leaving millions of people dead, homeless, or starving.
When the United States was ultimately joined by Japan, West Germany, China, Philippines, Argentina, and Canada in their protest of the invasion, what was the U.S. and its allies' actions?
The U.S. and its allies continued to criticize the move and took measures to get them to withdraw. One of these measures came from President of the United States, Jimmy Carter, when he announced the boycott of all U.S. athletes in 1980 Summer Games being held in Moscow if the Soviet troops in Afghanistan didn't withdraw.
For that being said about the United States' actions, what was the actions of the Soviets?
Well, I think mainly boycotting the 1984 Summer Games being held in Los Angeles was a major impact on the relationship between the U.S. and the Soviets.
So do you think by the Soviets boycotting the Summer Olympics will affect the relationship between the U.S. and Soviets?
Yes, I do. I think that by doing so, this will put a wedge between them and could make this invasion maybe even a decade long.
So by saying this could be a decade-long invasion, what do you think the long-term effect could be?
Well, thousands of lives might be lost on both sides of the Soviet and U.S. by conflict, and an entire country might be devastated by war.
Well, thank you, Afghani, for coming in and answering questions. Back to you, Tyler.
Before we get back to another interview, here's some of the backstory on the 1980 Olympics. It was the winter of January 20th, 1980, when Jimmy Carter issued the ultimatum that the U.S. would not participate in the 1980 Olympic Games that were to take place in Moscow if the Soviet troops in Afghanistan did not withdraw. A decision that was met with great disappointment and outrage from the U.S. athletes. Back to you, Caitlin, to interview one of these athletes, Anita DeFrance.
I'm here with Olympic athlete Anita DeFrance, that is part of the competitive rowing team that was supposed to compete in the 1980 Olympics. So Anita, how did the Olympic boycott negatively affect you?
I was really disappointed that the U.S. was boycotting the Olympics, knowing that I've been waiting to do this competition for so long. All the years I have been training for this, and it feels like it was just for nothing.
And Jimmy Carter issued an ultimatum on January 20, 1980, that the U.S. would not participate in the 1980 Olympic Games taking place in Moscow if the Soviet troop in Afghanistan didn't withdraw. Jimmy Carter, Lord Kalam, and Leonid Brezhnev all had an intervention to discuss the matter of the boycott. Did you think that boycotting the Olympics was an efficient way of getting the Soviet troops to withdraw?
Yeah, I think it was an efficient way. I mean, I couldn't imagine the U.S. doing any other way that wasn't going to lead to aggression. But it did affect the athletes to be the victim in the situation.
So what do you think will be the long-term effect of all of this?
Honestly, what's happening right now how the Soviet Union is boycotting the Olympic Games as an act of revenge.
So you think this is an act of revenge from the Soviet Union?
Yes, I think it is an act of revenge.
Thank you, Anita, for coming on Los Angeles National News. And back to you, Tyler, to wrap it up.
The modern Olympic Games began as a way for the world to come together peacefully and enjoy universal sports. It represents a chance to set aside all those things we claim makes us different and come together as a human family. Are these Olympic athletes being used as political pawns in the ongoing Cold War? Or is there really a concern for USSR athlete safety while in the U.S.? We'll let you decide. For Los Angeles National News, I'm Tyler. Good night, LA.